Okay, cool. Okay, great. Well, thank you for letting me know a little bit about who is in the room. And I also appreciate knowing that you've already started using Zinnia. And my understanding then is that you've been primarily using it in activities, and you're interested in talking more about how it translates into kind of everyday use. And the next question that I have for you is that when you're using it in activities, I'm assuming that it's on a TV, similar to the way that we're being projected now. But when you're using it one-on-one or in small groups that aren't activities focused, would that be more likely on some kind of a tablet, or would that also be on a television? Or both?
Television.
Television.
Okay. That's helpful. So thank you for letting me know that. So I guess probably the easiest thing to do is we'll just go ahead and I will share my screen and just kind of pop through Zinnia and talk a little bit about how it's used. Really briefly, like who are we? So Bill and I are two of the founders with Zinnia, and my background, Zinnia originally came from my experience as a dementia family caregiver. My husband was diagnosed with frontotemporal dementia as a pretty young man. And after that, I did a lot of work working in clinical settings and in care community settings as an educator, talking about dementia education, mental health education for the state of Washington and the University of Washington. So anyway, and Zinnia was the thing that I wish that I had had when I was a caregiver to help me get through some tough stuff. So let me go ahead and get Zinnia up and running. And then come back to Zoom and share my screen. Okay, and Bill, could you just give me a thumbs up that you, okay, awesome, thank you. And I apologize, I'm running this on a laptop today. So there are some things on the screen that wouldn't ordinarily be there if you were running this as an app. So the way that I typically use Zinnia is by popping into the channels. And I'm going to go through with you today just the kind of the main use cases that I have seen people using it in the situations that you have described. So I'm going to start off by going to the interests channel. So there are many hundreds of Zinnia videos, and they're organized, as you probably already know then, by these categories. And the first use case for working one-on-one or in small groups would be having to do with creating connection and engagement, and at the same time having an excellent distraction that can help people who are in a state of anxiety. And it kind of is it kind of bundles together. The idea being that if I have something that is really something that speaks to you, and I'll just use this video as an example, I'm going to shut down the volume so it doesn't interfere with our conversation. There we go. So the videos are, as you probably already are aware, are intentionally built to be plot-free, to prevent confusion between what is real and what is not. They are slow-paced because we know that people are challenged to have, that their processing speed is challenged, both auditory and visual. And so therefore, if there was a resident who I knew a little bit about, and I knew that they were into gardening, for instance, this would be a great opportunity. There'd be soft music playing in the background, which of course you can shut off if you don't want that. There are often sound effects that are part of the video. But if I were sitting with a resident or a small group of residents who were people who had once been into gardening, this would be an opportunity, if they are nonverbal, for me to be the storyteller, where I could just describe what we're looking at. If they are still verbal or are able to communicate in any way, it would be a way for me to engage with them. So to ask questions about what was their favorite thing? What is their favorite thing to grow? What's their favorite part about gardening? Are they really good at pulling weeds? What do you think these plants are? I think they're pepper plants. So I use this to just create connection and engagement with the person who I'm supporting. Meanwhile, what I'm hopeful is that you will be able to identify within your population topics that might be of interest to different residents. So growing veggies might be really captivating for somebody who was a gardener, but for somebody who was really into fishing, maybe that would be the thing. Or as an example, I'm going to pop up into our babies, one of our babies. We have lots of babies videos. Babies tend to be quite popular. Go ahead and get this guy. So shifting from conversation and connection to a conversation about using Zinnia as a tool to help reduce agitation. I showed this video not only because I love looking at babies, but also because I was had the wonderful opportunity very early on in our product development to chat with a woman who was using Zinnia back before it was an app, when it was a just a web-based tool. They were using Zinnia in their community. And they had a woman who on a regular basis would get into a state in the towards the afternoon where she would become highly agitated. And per her PRN, the way that they dealt with it was that she had a antipsychotic medication that they would give her to calm her down. And they had discovered, as we all know, that if there's a way to avoid using antipsychotics, that would be great, because people, as you guys all know well, become a fall risk. It can speed decline. So she shared with me this wonderful story about the day that they thought, you know what? If there was a way that we could distract her, maybe we wouldn't need the antipsychotic. And so when she was starting to amp up, they sat her down and they put on the baby's video. And she said it was like night and day, that she just shifted gears. She was so focused on the babies, and she was cooing at the screen, and she was giggling with the babies. And she said, so we actually wound up ultimately changing her care plan with her doctor's agreement, that the first order of response on our part would be to show her the baby's video and only use the antipsychotic if the baby's video didn't work. And this is something that has been borne out in our research as well. So we did 2 years of research at the University of British Columbia in conjunction with Vancouver General Hospital. And they shared with us a really cool story. So this is one of our older videos. Instead of being video driven, it is driven by static images. So let me drop off that sound. And at Vancouver General Hospital, they had a guy, and you guys all know this guy. He was somebody who would get into a state of agitation that could escalate to a point where at one point he was brought to the emergency room. And as often happens, they weren't going to release him back to the care community. So he lived for quite a while at the hospital. And they were trying to manage his behaviors, his reactions within that acute care space. And so they were using Zinnia, and in their case, they had it mounted they had a ceiling mounted projector that shined Zinnia on a wall. So not that different from using it on a TV screen. And they shared with us a wonderful video of them bringing this guy into the space when he's in a state of agitation. And they've got the car video on the screen because they know that he's into cars. And so what happens is just a beautiful thing to behold, where he is suddenly the expert in the room. And so he turns to the audience and he's talking to the other people in the room about what they're seeing on the screen. He has become the expert, he has become the narrator, and it has completely taken him out of his state of agitation. And by the time the video is done, he has returned back to being a calmer version of himself. So in both of those cases, with babies and with cars, the thing that they have in common is that we have identified something that is likely to be of high value to the person that we're supporting. And so one of the things that I would encourage you to do out of the gate is to take a look at the topics that are not just in the interest channel, but also in, for instance, the nature channel, the animals channel, the travel channel, the faith channel, and look for something that you think might be of high value, especially to folks that you support who might have a tendency from time to time to get kind of amped up, and you need a way to help soothe them. In general, a lot of people rely on the nature videos to create a soothing tone before starting an activity, for instance. We might put something on like Life of the Butterfly. Or if we're about to go out for a walk in the nice weather, we might put on something that like the trees video, or maybe we might put on fall leaves if we're walking in the autumn, to just kind of set the stage for things that we might see on our walk and to get people accustomed to the idea that we're going outside. Riffing on that idea of getting people ready for something, another use case that you might have in the one-on-one or small group setting is these activity of daily living videos. So the activity of daily living videos are intended to help prepare somebody for an activity that we're about to start. So for instance, even something like the breakfast video, we actually created this one for a long-term care community who wanted to have a way for their residents who were waiting for breakfast to be served to have a sense of what's coming. And so what they found is that when people watched the breakfast video before they sat down to breakfast, their appetites were whetted because they had watched images of food, and that people understood that the reason that we're sitting down is because we're about to start eating food ourselves. So as I mentioned, our videos don't have plots, but there is kind of a story flow. So here we're showing eggs as they're sitting in the chicken nest, but then we show eggs being cooked. And so it also creates an opportunity for a little bit of storytelling in the moment. Things like the drink water video. We have folks who will use this one multiple times throughout the day, because what we've discovered is that when people watch the drink water video, they are more likely to take a drink if it's something that they have been resistant to. So we not only have people drinking water, we have dogs drinking water and geese drinking water and kitty cats drinking water. And one of the things that was borne out in our research is that if we use these videos as part of the daily routine, that in general, the routines become easier. So if there is somebody who is resistant to showering, that every morning we watch the showering video. Maybe every time at the end of activities, we watch a drink water video and then we hand out smoothies or we hand out glasses of water, for instance. We also have found quite a bit of success with videos like the good night video, which shows people getting sleepy and preparing to tuck in for the night. And we have heard from both professional and family caregivers that if they watch this as part of their regular nightly routine, that it helps people be more comfortable with the fact that they're going to bed, and it increases the likelihood that they will stay in bed. We also have a video that's specifically intended for if somebody gets up in the middle of the night, that we can sit with them, we can bring them out to the TV, we can watch a let's go back to bed video, and that it increases the likelihood that that person will return without a fuss back to bed. I'll go ahead and pop out of there. This all day channel is not something that is something that's typically used in a setting where we have a TV that's running. Like we have the TV running, the videos are playing in the background. It's not really the intention that we park people in front of it all day, but if it's a pass-through area where people are walking by, it might allow them to kind of stop and engage in conversations, because one of the beautiful things that we've seen is that Zinnia videos not only promote connection and conversation between the caregiver and the person that they support, but also between residents who live on the same floor. Oh, I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean it. Apparently that was good news. Let's see. So for the folks in activities, I suspect that they might be using some of these videos as a catalyst. Like if we're going to be doing a flower arranging session, that we might watch one of the flowers videos, or if we're going to be cooking something, that we'd watch one of the baking videos, or if we're going to be doing art, maybe we'll watch an art video before we start that. but we also do have these videos that are the fun and games videos that can be used in individual and one-on-one settings as well. The having fun videos are just sort of silly. It's just nutty little scenes of people doing wacky things, and they tend to make people laugh, as do our puns videos and our jokes videos. Let's Dance, great opportunity to put that on, and then one-on-one, pull somebody out of their chair and kind of get them moving a little bit. We have videos that drive the conversation. So where I am totally comfortable hanging out with somebody and just chatting about what we're seeing on the screen, not everybody's comfortable with that. So these help drive that conversation. I highly recommend that you check some of these out. And what goes along with these is a new channel that we're just starting to populate, which are our quizzes. As you can see, not a lot here yet, but these are a very, we're starting to label them as being easier or harder, depending on the capacity of the person that you support. But they have a spoken word that goes along with them, where it invites people, and some of the newer ones, it actually describes what we're about to talk about. And it
How do
asks a
dogs
question.
communicate with other dogs when they
Let me
meet?
drop that. And so in a one-on-one or small group setting, it gives you the opportunity with that person or people to just have a conversation in the moment. And then you find out what the answer is and you move on to the next question. I'm going to go back to my channels for a second. We do have some new exercise videos that we have put in. There's an organization called Enhance Fitness that does exercise programs intended to help with balance, with movement. There are some weights that they use in some of their videos. They have whimsical things like musical instruments, where the exercise is that you're pretending that you're playing a trombone or banging a drum, for instance. And so again, these are really awesome in just individual or one-on-one settings. All the one with pink shirts are the Enhanced Fitness, but then we also have some videos that are that we have done ourselves. And we also have these sing-along videos. And again, in individual or one-on-one settings, it's really lovely to be able to have somebody else kind of driving the song that we're going to be singing together. All of the words do appear at the bottoms of the songs, because sometimes they're songs that either you or the person you're supporting might not know the words to. I also do want to point out these holiday videos. So again, in individual and one-on-one settings, it could be helpful to kind of help establish place and time if it's a holiday season. We have a birthday sing-along if you know that it's somebody's birthday, which is kind of fun. I think I'll go ahead and just pop out for now. We do have this category, which is just about how to use Zinnia. So if you are a couple of weeks go by and you're like, wow, what was she talking about? How I use these videos to help reduce anxiety or help start conversations. These are videos to help you figure that out. I will go ahead and stop my share there and just ask A, if that was helpful, and B, if you have any questions or anything that you'd like me to do a little bit of a deeper dive on.
I apologize. I'm getting over a
No
cold.
worries.
But no, they're all shaking their head. No, I think this was helpful. Yes. I don't think anybody has questions. I think they're all thinking about how they can use it in your different departments and for specific residents and all of that kind of stuff. I guess my question would be, have you had any opposite effects of this? Like seeing Christmas triggers the person because they can't be around family and they always used to be, or not being seeing the cars, they all of a sudden want the car.
Where's my car? Where's my car? Yep, absolutely.
That's a common one we have. We have 2 or 3 people that are regularly asking, where's my car keys? I'm ready to go. Do you see that happening? Like, I know that's one of the questions that the staff members are going to ask us as we're starting to roll this out. Well, we don't want to put cars in front of them because they're constantly asking for cars.
You are
So
smart
is
to ask
that going to make this worse, not better?
So again, you're super smart to ask that question. And of course, it's just like if somebody came into the dining area and a family member and said, "Oh, you should see my new car," right? A person who's sitting at a nearby table might get triggered and say, "Car, where's my car?" Right? So I think that I think the benefits far outweigh the negatives, but I think that it's something that you absolutely need to pay attention to. So there might be somebody, if you have a small group and there's a person who's terrified of dogs, you don't want to play the dogs video. When I have heard about this being an issue, it's been when people are using that all day channel. So for instance, there was a gentleman who reached out to me and he said, we put on the all day channel and it was very confusing for my wife because we were watching something about like a nature scene and suddenly there were people on the screen and she didn't know where the people came from. And so she wasn't ready for that. So I think that it's on us who are the caregivers to just be aware of the fact that there are things that could be triggering and we absolutely avoid those. That's not to say that you won't run into things though, right? Like you might not know that Jim had a horrible experience at Christmas when he was 7 years old until you play the Christmas video and Jim starts to freak out and you're like, what is going on? So I would absolutely encourage you to be thoughtful about which videos you play. I don't often hear of that kind of situation, but I think it's because people tend to be aware of the topics that they would avoid. And there might also be topics that are really boring for someone, right? Like if I were to put the gardening video on for somebody who is not a gardener or who was forced to weed the garden when they were a kid and they hate it, right? That might be triggering. And I might not know until the time that I put that video on. Similarly, though, there are things that I might not know that we could deepen the conversation about until I played that video. So for instance, we had some folks who did some early testing for us. And in the beginning, when the wife who had dementia, she had Alzheimer's disease, in the beginning, she was not a person who ever watched TV and she was completely disinterested. We had even made videos. She was an artist and we had made videos that were specifically for her. She was from California. We had California videos. We had art videos. We had videos about color in general, videos about painting. She wasn't interested in them. As her dementia progressed, her husband would just randomly put on videos and she started to get really connected with the videos. The one that she wanted to watch every day was about the Navy. And he never figured out why. Like, why is it that she is fascinated by the video about the Navy? So, and so he was able to then talk to her about the things that he was seeing on the screen. And it was sort of mysterious to him. But you can imagine that in a long-term care setting, if I find when I put this on, and this is something that we do hear from people, is that, wow, I never knew that Bill had spent 3 years living in London when he was a young man. And it wasn't until we played the London video and he started talking about his time in London that we suddenly had this whole new piece of Bill open up to us. And we had a new type of conversation that we could have with him as a result of having learned more about him through his responses to the videos.
Okay. Anything else? You had a couple other people drop in. My head of IL and AL has dropped in. She's thinking they do have a dementia unit over at the AL, third floor, but even some of the other areas. And then another ADON dropped in as we were talking, just because you were asking who the audience was.
You know, I will share with you that I with some regularity do lectures in independent living communities. And my topic is like, how do we as a community support the people amongst us who are starting to have cognitive changes? Basically, I'm trying to reduce bullying by creating sort of a compassionate connection with people who are starting to struggle with cognitive issues. When I start that lecture, like 15 minutes before I get up on stage, I always have Zinnia playing and I just sit down. I'm just a fly on the wall and I'm watching these people connect and engage and talk about the videos that they're watching. So even in independent living, even in assisted living, the videos can really encourage and promote conversation and connection between people because they're sitting there watching together. They're having a conversation as they're watching it, like, wow, I remember the time that my husband and I went to whatever. It was just amazing, you know, and so anyway, I encourage you, if you've got it, you know, you've already got Zinnia, it's not a bad idea to try using it in some of those other settings. And especially as we start plumping out and adding more of these quiz videos, I think that those two are a great opportunity for people with greater cognitive capacity to have some fun together.
I think we should play it before our staff meeting.
Yeah.
Calm them down before they.
Yes, yes. And you know, we do have caregiver education videos. So we have some places where at staff meetings, they watch one of the education videos and they use that as a conversation starter about a specific aspect of care. So just tossing that out there. Don't mean to give anybody more work to do, but just so you know, those are out there.
Perfect. Any other insights that you guys have for us on using Zinnia?
You know, I would say make sure that people are close enough to the television. So I think that with any kind of viewing, recognizing that people with auditory or visual issues, if they can't see what's going on the screen, then it's not really going to do them a lot of good. So just kind of keeping that in mind. The other thing that I would point out is that we have communities where, for instance, there's a room where not a lot of people go in, sort of like a solace room, where they have Zinnia running. And when families come to visit, that the families go into that space with their loved one, and it gives them something to talk about and something to do. Because I know that for me, right, when I was visiting my husband and he was nonverbal, it's like, okay, what do you talk about? If you ever do wind up getting like an iPad to use on the floor or to use for family visits. So we have, there's a hospital here in Seattle where they use Zinnia on a tablet. And when families come to visit their loved ones with dementia in an acute care setting, that they give them a Zinnia tablet. And again, it just creates an opportunity for connection and engagement. And you wouldn't need another subscription of Zinnia. You just use the same one on the tablet if you went in that direction at all.
When
So
we have tablets related to activities, that we could always utilize for other things when they're not using them.
yeah, absolutely. And I do know also that in some places they use that as kind of a marketing tool as well, when talking to new families about the fact that they have this tool that helps promote connection and engagement when they're visiting, and that helps to reduce agitation and also enhance care. If the way that I often describe it to people from a family caregiver perspective, but it translates to professional caregiving as well. And that is that if he's happy, I'm happy. So if I'm able to help reduce agitation and help people feel connected and engaged, to take away some stress around activities of daily living, then that makes my job easier. And so that is really what I'm hoping that you guys will experience, is that by using Zinnia, that you find that you are feeling less stress and more enjoyment.
Perfect. Well, I'm not sure we have anything else on our end. I think we have some tools to go and try to implement out on the floor and get the staff more buy-in. Like I said, we've been using it for activities, but now it's time to branch out a little bit wider than that, which is always the harder part in long-term care,
It is hard.
getting all
It
the
is.
shifts.
Yep. And what we have found is that once we get a few people who are champions, who start to see the benefit, that then it kind of slowly starts to it's a little hockey stick, right? It starts to take off. I will go ahead and save this recording, and I'll just save it out as a YouTube video, and I'll just share the link with you, and you can then
That's
share that
perfect.
with your folks. Okay, good. Well, gosh, everybody, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. We're always available if you have questions. We love to hear how things are working for you. We also love to hear how things are not working. So if there's anything that you have particularly found that you love, or something that kind of rubs you the wrong way, please let us know.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time. Have a good
Betcha.
day.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.